Greetings. I'm Kirk. I'll be your instructor this term. Just thought I'd say hello and tell you a little bit about the class just to get you started. The first thing I recommend you do is you go to the Welcome to the Writing 121 announcement, read that, and the snapshot calendar, and you can find those in the announcements. Then I recommend you go to content at the top, click on that, and then click on course information on your table of contents on the left. Actually, it's below. Let's see, table of contents. Let's see. Yeah, it's part of the table of contents. It's down like 2 spaces. Then you click on course information. I recommend that you go to the syllabus, take a look at that, familiarize yourself with, the syllabus is always a great place to start. As you know, anytime you take a class, tells you about my grading. Everything's really no nonsense, and walks you through how the class is structured. Everything from netiquette, ways of communication that make for a smooth term, so you don't ruffle any feathers or anything like that. One thing to consider is if you're new to the online environment, people are, in some ways they're more sensitive and in some ways they're less sensitive. Americans have a really strong reliance on visual cues to go off of. So like, I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess that, say for instance, in countries where, your gestures and facial appearance isn't quite so vital and they're more verbally oriented, that online communication might be a little bit less stressful for people. But in our culture, since we don't have those visual cues, people can misinterpret things you say, and that's something to consider. And it's old hat for me. I'm used to some students that sound worse through an email than they really are. They didn't mean to say something that sounded worse. That's another thing too, because people don't self-censor because there's no one standing right in front of them. You're not going to say a mean thing or, frankly, a very rude thing to someone. Well, you might, but I don't know you. But most people, they're just not going to be as crass in person. And some people, they'll just rattle off a quick email or whatever, and in the heat of the moment or whatever, and they don't really mean what they even say. So I take that into consideration. I have a pretty thick skin, but some of your classmates won't have a thick skin. So you'll be doing peer reviews and communication. You'll be responding to their discussions this term, so that's worth considering. And there's a little section on netiquette involving that. The class is structured around weekly assignments that involve discussions and quizzes. No real surprises there. The discussions, I have a separate video lecture on those, so you can take a look at that. Let's see, you can go to that in week 1. There's your weekly lessons there under the table of contents. Go to week 1, and you can see my instructor intro as a video. In addition to, if you click on week 1 introduction, you'll see 2 videos down near the bottom of that. One is on discussion 1, and that's when I talk about what the discussions involve, and the other is a tutorial on essay 1. And so I recommend you take a look at those as well. The essay 1 is not very hard. It's basically just a comparison contrast, and it's pretty structured in the sense that I find that early in the term students need more structure. As we go along, there's less and less structure until you get to essay 1. There's really not that much structure. It leaves a lot up to you. So having taught for 16 years, I just find that that's what most students need. They might not want it, but that's what most students need to do well, to do really well. So as an instructor, I'm not just sort of sitting in my ivory tower looking down on you. I'm rooting for you on the sidelines as a coach. So I want you to succeed. That's my goal. I want my students to do as well as they humanly can possibly do. So I've structured the class really to work in your favor in that way, in that regard. So I guess I don't have a lot else to say here. Let me just poke around here. I've got my computer going here. Got it fired up. Let's let's see, under week 1, you've got that instructor intro. Oh yeah, the introduction. So the introductions, it's important to get those intros in as soon as you can. Please do read the instructions on that, and I do say a little bit about it in the, I believe the discussion 1 blurb 2, the video. So make sure you follow the directions. You're trying to figure out something unique about yourself. What I'm trying to get you to do is to use the frontal lobes of your brain and not the reptilian complex hindbrain. So the hindbrain does automatic things, and it's a calculator essentially. And so it's good at calculating the odds. If you're in a pinch situation, it's good kind of getting you through a stressful situation, and it's good just kind of on the automated functions. It's what controls your body in terms of your breathing, your heart rate, and all that, so your conscious mind doesn't. But the problem with the reptilian complex is it's not very creative, and it's not very analytical in terms of a creative form of analysis, right? Which is what I'm trying to encourage you to do in here. So most people, they might grumble a little, well, in the intro you're asking me to say something that's unique about myself, different from my classmates. I think my job is different. I think my pets are different. I think, the fact that I'm married is different and I have 3 kids is different. But I'm asking you to kind of put those typical categories from the introduction aside and really kind of treat this like a little mini essay and focus on something about yourself that is, very interesting to your classmates, right? So try to think of something that's entertaining about yourself. It's okay to be entertaining. That's part of good writing, is being entertaining. And just kind of leave the other stuff by the wayside. Don't go into a lot of depth about your field of study, your academic endeavor, what you're trying to do in college, and let's not talk a little, overly much about how much you love your kids and all that. I mean, every mother or father loves their kids a lot. So, let's try to focus on something unique about yourself and treat this as an opportunity for learning, because it's not just, the purpose of the introduction isn't really just to introduce you to your classmates, frankly. The purpose of it is kind of introduction to the writing process and getting those wheels turning in your frontal lobes so that you're actually, learning, you're moving forward in the writing process. That's the purpose. And that's why some people complain. They're like, I don't see why your intro is different from my math class I do online. Well, actually there is a reason for that, because your math class doesn't deal with writing. So, not to say everyone has a math class, that was just a hypothetical example. Well, I can see now I'm getting up around 7.5, 8 minutes, so I'm going to sign off. But it's really great having you in the class, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thanks.